Hey, what's going on everybody, and welcome back to the Whiskey Cove. And on today's episode, we get a little controversial. These are 7 of the most overrated whiskeys, in my humble opinion. Run the video. All right then folks, thank you for joining us for another new and exciting episode here on the Whiskey Cove, where we will be talking about 7 of the most overrated whiskeys, in my opinion, that you can probably get or that are available on the market right now. So this isn't a list that I tend to like to do. I don't necessarily want to bash on whiskeys or distilleries. However, I feel like I have pretty good reasons of why I feel like these whiskeys are overrated. With that being said, we are trying to hit 10,000 subscribers. If you would like to win an old Rip 10-year or 5 other awesome bottles, then you have to be a subscriber. And then after this video, go down below in the description and then submit your ticket. We will do a 10,000 live stream. You don't have to be on the live stream to win. You just need to make sure you submit your ticket. Please only submit one, and please just make sure you're a subscriber, because we will have to check. With that being said, let's talk overrated whiskey. And bottle number 1, of course, is one of the most overrated whiskeys here at the Whiskey Cove. It is Caribou Crossing. Caribou Crossing probably runs around $70 or so. I think that's about $60 too much, in my opinion. When I was up in Canada, I saw these for like $100. So that's quite expensive for what this is. Some people say that it's the Canadian Blantons. Looks a little like that, and it has that stopper on the top, which is probably where it gets that name from. This is made by Sazerac, and quite frankly, tastes like paint stripper. It's just budget Canadian, like bottom shelf stuff. We're talking benchmark level stuff, and that's maybe a knock on benchmark, if truth be told. It does come in this nice bottle, and the stopper is pretty cool, but it's just not a bottle that you should be chasing, not a bottle that you should pay your hard-earned money for. And that's why Caribou Crossing is bottle number 1 on this list as some of the most overrated whiskey that you can get. It's just not worth the money. That is definitely marketing over quality. So the next bottle on this list is also maybe a bit of a controversial one, and that is 13th Colony Cask Strength Southern Bourbon Whiskey. So why I think this is overrated, I think it leans into the price again. This is about $90 here in Colorado. And I know that some folks out there say that it's only ever distilled in Georgia. Well, I believe that's not the case. I believe that they do also source from MGP, from I'm aware of, just to meet the demands of the consumer right now. I will say that the double oaked one of this is phenomenal, but I think just the cask strength version, at least the ones that we have here in Colorado that might have a bit of a blend to them, I think that they're just kind of more of the same kind of MGP feeling whiskey, and you can probably get the same type of whiskey from MGP under a different brand for like $50. I don't really think this is worth the $85, $90 at all. I'd rather get Still Austin cask strength or something like that. I also dislike the bottle size because it doesn't quite fit on my shelf. ABV for this is 60.32% and 120 proof. As you can see, I've got through quite a decent chunk of it, so I think my opinion can be validated a little bit by that. Not worth the money. I think it's probably a bit overpriced, because where 13th Colony really shines is some of the limited edition offerings, like the double oaked, or like the double oaked rye as well, or toasted rye, and some of the other kind of limited offerings. However, I feel like for this, for $90, it's just a little bit adjunct and kind of a little bit overrated, in my humble opinion. So I would take a pass on this. Next up, and as a big Barton fan and 1792 fan, it pains me to say that I do not like this bottle of whiskey. 1792 full proof. Yes, this is a single barrel pick, but I've had a few different offerings from the full proof single barrels and just the regular full proof bottle. And there's just something about them that I just don't jive with. I think it comes across so hot. You know, a lot of these cask strength bourbons can have really high ABV, but they can have a really nice balance and sweetness to them, which palates that out a little bit. But with this, you could stick this in your car and you would just be able to drive, because it kind of noses a little bit like rocket fuel. It can be really harsh, and there's just so much ABV and proof that kind of comes through and kind of punches you in the mouth a little bit there. And I've had this bottle for, I think this one specifically, for 2 years. I'll go back to it and have a sip every now and again just to see if it's changed and kind of just sat down a little bit. That never happens. Like I said, it's just like rocket fuel, and it's wild how hot it is. And like I said, I really like Barton, and that is the only stuff that I don't like from them, just because it's just too hot. 50% ABV, 100 proof. They knock it out of the park every time. The aged 12 years, the single barrel, sweet to wheat, bottled in bond, just phenomenal stuff. However, they missed a little on that one. Next up from the Jim Beam Distillery, that is Old Overhaul Cask Strength, aged 11 years. So paid about $110 or so from this from the distillery, and I've kind of been pretty heavily disappointed by it. I wouldn't say this is too highly rated. I think you might be able to get this from the distillery still, but for $110, doesn't make sense for me. I think much like the old Grandad 16, I think the branding didn't meet the price tag, and I think that labeling this as a $110 whiskey is just, yeah, it just doesn't make sense for me whatsoever. Too much kind of really heavy licorice and dusty rolled rye notes in this, like an old loaf of rye bread they forgot about and kind of left it for a while and came back to it. This is coming in at a modest 53.7% ABV or 107.4 proof. It just doesn't live up. It's just super overrated. It just doesn't live up to the standard that it set itself for $110. The next bottle is these Woodford Reserve pint-sized bottles. So I'm not saying that like some specific ones are worse than others, which they are, but some are also better than others, like the double oaked. But I think what you're getting for around like $70 is not worth it. It's super overrated. Like, this blended malt is awful. It's not a good whiskey whatsoever. Yeah, and that's from someone who likes a lot of what Brown-Forman and Woodford put out. But I think that these pint-sized bottles are just super overrated. They have them at the distillery because I think that they just want consumers to buy something there. But it just doesn't taste like any of the best stuff that they do. Every now and again, they'll have one that catches my eye and people might talk really positively about. But I think across everything, and when you take everything into account, I just think that these pint-sized bottles they sell at the distillery are really overrated. And this blended malt was some of the worst stuff that I've had in 2024. Although we didn't do worst whiskeys of 2024, like I said, I don't really like to do these lists, but I thought it was time to kind of do them round about now just for you folks to enjoy, because you're always asking me what are overrated whiskeys, so that's why I curated this list for you. 2 bottles left, and we have Elmer T. Lee. I've been quite vocal about Elmer T. Lee on the Whiskey Cove because it's not worth the crazy amounts of money that people are willing to pay for it for whatever reason. I generally believe, and we've done a blind here on the Whiskey Cove, that the Buffalo Trace single barrels are head and shoulders above these Elmer T. Lees. It just noses so flat. It's like a diluted Buffalo Trace. It's like someone added a little bit of water to it, swirled it around a little bit, and they nose it. There's really not much going on in the bottle, and why people pay like $200 for these is anyone's guess. I think now they're actually even starting to put them out at the distillery in Frankfort, Kentucky, at Buffalo Trace. So you might be able to get them there for like $50, I think they might be. And I think even at that price is probably a little bit too much. Stick to the Buffalo Trace store picks if you can find them for around $30. And I think they will knock this out of the park every day of the week. This is probably one of the most overrated on this list, if not the most overrated. And next up we have my old friend Booker's. So, love Jim Beam. Jim Beam was the first distillery I really got into when I was living in the UK. However, since coming on to the US, I must have bought about 5 or 6 of these Bookers, and I've only had one that I really liked. and that was the one last year. That was the Reserve, and that was absolutely phenomenal. They did a great job with that, but that was even more expensive. Again, you had to pay a little bit extra for that, and it was like around $150, where the regular Booker sits around $100. So is it technically a Booker's, or is it another special release from Jim Beam? I would kind of separate that from the regular offerings that you get from Booker's. I know there are a lot of Booker's fans out there, but for me, I think the pricing, and for like what you get like 6 to 7 year old whiskey, yeah, it doesn't quite add up. And like I said, I have 3 regular Bookers right now open. I don't like any of them, and I've had them. This one, for example, this is 2021, and it's still 3/4 the way full. And that's the same for every one that I have here. I just haven't been enjoying them enough to drink them, and that's why I think that they're generally pretty overrated. You strip them back, you take the box away, you take the label off, peel the wax back, and you just have the bottle on its own. It's like a $50 bottle, in my opinion. It was probably closer to that point, 10 years or so ago. Yes, I know prices and inflation, it's not 2015 anymore. However, the quality just isn't there enough for you to be charging $100 to $120 on these Bookers, in my opinion, these days. So although that they did a really good one last year, the Reserves, I felt like that was just a specialty bottle, and it could have or could not have carried the Booker's label for whatever reason, because it was like more expensive. With that being said, those were 7 overrated whiskeys in my humble opinion. A lot of controversial ones there, so definitely let me know down in the description if there's any you would agree with, some you don't, or some that you think should be added to the list. These are not all the overrated whiskeys that I believe that are out there. These are just some that we have here in the Whiskey Cove that I can share with you folks today. With that being said, as we drink through the world's whiskeys, one glass at a time, and it's taken a while to drink through these ones, cheers.